Good morning, Israel. Good morning, folks. It's the middle of the night. I'm going to take a guess. It's the 29th of October. I'm not really sure. It's not Halloween anyway. I think it's the night before. Could be the 30th. Yeah, probably the 30th. I think we crossed just after midnight. I had a video that was taken down on the other channel. It was called FBI is NFG. And it was taken down under false pretenses. And I received a strike for that. And I don't know exactly. Well, actually, I didn't receive a strike for that. That's right. I already had 2 strikes, and they took it down. And YouTube explained to me that they weren't giving me a strike because they were trying to help me to stay on YouTube. And then, of course, YouTube asked me if their message was helpful. Well, I thought about appealing it. Last time, or the first time actually, I appealed, they went from no consequences to you can't upload for a week. So I learned my lesson. You can't appeal without them retaliating. So that's just their nature. So think about that. You can't appeal and assert for yourself and intellectually argue the point because they're not fair. They're dominating it. So I really would like to see YouTube take it apart. I'd like to see the board put in jail. To be honest with you, I'd like to see the people that do the censoring put in prison. I'd like to see them made felons and be required to do at least a year in the penitentiary for violating my First Amendment free speech rights. So they came up with a pretense, and there's only 2 things so far that I can tell that you really can't talk about here. We can't address the event that's gotten the nation in so much trouble that we're about to go into a civil war. We're definitely going to be going to a period of rioting and stuff across the country. And that's a direct result of the bullshit that happened in 2020, which we can't talk about because we're considered, I guess we're considered deniers or some sort of, we're not in touch with reality. So we've got gaslighting on a very grand scale. So we can't even talk about it, and yet we're supposed to have faith in the system. Blind faith in a blind system. Blind faith in a rigged system. So we're supposed to move ahead like nothing happened in 2020. Everything is copacetic. My brother used that word in a conversation, and it kind of let me know where he stood at the moment. Wasn't a good place. Look, there's one other thing we can't talk about, and that's the reason they used for taking my video down. That was a really important video, probably a milestone in giving you the history of the FBI and how it is no frickin' good. And so I've decided what we need to talk about is Alex de Tocqueville. Alex de Tocqueville was a Frenchman. He was pretty much a social historian, if you will. And so he wrote a book about America, and it was an important book. It was an outsider describing us, and we appreciated that book. I'm going to bring it down to the gist for you. The whole book went into American life in a grand scale, and it all boiled down to this: America was great, and why America was great. And Alex de Tocqueville said, America is great because America is good. America will cease being great when America ceases being good. I think we've gone past the point of being able to call ourselves good and fool ourselves and gaslight ourselves, lie to ourselves, trick ourselves into claiming that we're good. And nothing depicts better that we are no good, no frickin' good, than the FBI or the DOJ. You have the Stasi, you have the police, the secret police, the whatever you want to call them. You have incredible surveillance in which the FBI's excuse is, well, they want to prevent crime. So they've invented all kinds of things that are sort of like pre-crime. Now, I like Bongino's characterization of soft censorship versus hard censorship. And the thing is that right now the FBI is busy looking at all of us using their software, using their, well, the secret police in the United States is doing everything they can to track and analyze you and to guide your thinking and my thinking. And we're being really influenced terribly. I don't like using apps very much. Only bought this phone so I could do these videos for you and get those up there. And by the way, I'm not getting many likes. I'm not getting much plays. Not getting many views. Not selling many Bibles. And I understand that America is no freaking good. That's what it's come down to. So I'm tossing the gauntlet out there. Do you want to survive? Because we're not going to be able to survive the next month or two, in my opinion. They're purposely running us into the ground, and there's no going back. There's no coming back from how evil we have become. We aren't honest with ourselves. We aren't in touch with reality. We can't have honest, open discussions. Things have to be censored. We cannot talk about the genocide that's going on right now. And I mean, I can actually say that. They're not going to censor me on that. But if we start talking about the methods, then we're in trouble. So I suppose it might be safe if I talk about race here a little bit. I just watched a video from the Army War College at length because I was trying to understand history better, trying to understand Hitler in particular. It's kind of a mystifying figure. And in the War College, they emphasized that it was Hitler's Nazism that caused his defeat. So it was his racist bigotry, his racial ideas, which he based all of his decisions on, according to those folks, this British fellow that presented at the Army War College. I don't appreciate the use of the term Nazi. The Germans certainly did not call themselves that. And it appears to me as though we're convicting them in arrears, if you will, of a crime that they really were not guilty of. I'm wondering, am I just being naive? Am I really missing the point? And I don't think so. And the crazy thing is that, of course, they're making the broad sweeping point that Herr Hitler lost the war because he was evil and he kept turning to his Nazi ideology. And so I think they've fabricated this monster. I don't think the man really existed like that, to be honest with you. I don't think it's an honest, accurate portrayal. And I remember some acts of mercy by Herr Hitler that resulted in him losing. Yeah. He had the entire British army pinned down. And his general said, let's go finish him off. And Hitler didn't want to do it. He actually, I think, maybe I'm wrong here, but I think Hitler recognized the fact that these soldiers were brothers. That even though they were British, from Britain, across that doggone channel, that they were part of the same people, part of the same great civilization. And the crazy thing is, I think Hitler was right. And he backed off at Dunkirk. They said it was a miracle because they were able to evacuate. Well, Hitler didn't want to decimate those boys. He didn't want to hurt the British. He actually wanted peace. Here's the crazy thing, is we think that Hitler wanted to rule the world. No, he sued for peace and wanted peace. Churchill was the crazy one that wouldn't give it to him. But of course, with the news media that we have, the news media have portrayed it the way they want. And the victors dictate history. They tell us what the reality was, which is absolutely horrible because the truth is pretty messy. The facts are usually pretty odd. The devil, as they say, is in the details. So we've come to another point in history where people are eager to go to war. You got Americans wanting to fight Russians now. They don't seem to understand that what will happen is that America will be destroyed. I don't like saying that. I don't like saying it at all because I'm sitting here and I realize that I get to get bombed just like the rest of you do. And it's because we've stopped being good. And we're out of touch with reality. You have a Democrat delusional system that someone will give me something for nothing. So they really think that they can vote themselves free money, helicopter money, all kinds of stuff from the government. It's actually stolen from others. So there is a theft in there. And these guys that run the place, these corrupt politicians, take their cut. So it costs us even more than what it should because they want to live big and large. And they do live big and large. Just look at Martha's Vineyard. And then you have the other party, which is virtually psychotic. So out of touch with reality, it's not funny. You know, people right now are going to be going to the polls, or they're already voting. In a lot of cases, many people have already cast their votes. And basically, they think something's going to change because of their vote. I don't think anything's going to change because of their vote. I don't have any confidence in these electronic systems and these things that were set up and staged. I mean, they were purposely thrown out of whack by, Arizona got thrown out of whack in 2016 by Adrian Fontes. He kept recounting things and delaying things, and he didn't open up places, so a lot of people never did get to vote. He really, really threw a monkey wrench into the voting system, and he kept recounting. Took him a couple weeks. Maybe it was more than that. Anyway, what did he do? He got himself his Democrat senator that he wanted. Yeah. And he got himself a Secretary of State that he wanted. And he got himself the head of education, which is just grooming the children for sex, turning them all into sex objects, getting them preoccupied with sex, and screwing the kids up at a very early age. They're not allowed to have childhood anymore. Yeah. Crazy people that think that they're going to force off this weird stuff on us of transgenderism. I don't know what to tell you. They woke a sleeping giant, but the real problem is that the women that are finally coming to bat for their kids, the mama bears that are finally enraged, they think that an unequal playing field and getting all the goodies and having all the power, being awarded custody of the children almost all the time, it's like automatic, being able to be unfaithful, file for divorce, and walk away with cash, goodies, and prizes at the expense of the man, they think that's a good thing. It's just too imbalanced, folks. It cannot be good. It's not good when it gets this imbalanced. I mean, men have no rights. Let me give you one particular example. If a man has fathered a child, a woman is pregnant due to that engaging the man in sex, he has no say in things. He has no rights. He cannot save his child. If that woman insists she's going to abort that child, that she's going to murder his child, he has to suck it up and take it. He has to allow her to destroy life. And they claim it's her body. Well, it's always going to be her body. I mean, we men don't have much of a choice. If we want to have a child, a woman's going to bear the child. But what I would like to see, and a lot of other men would like to see, is if a woman wants an abortion, she has to have the consent of the father. The father has to consent. And if the man does not want his child aborted, he needs to be able to have the right to walk into court and demand that this baby go to full term and he be able to have his child. I'd love to see men's rights. I mean, it's not your body. I mean, it's not. One cell is your body, women. One egg. One measly egg is all that is. One cell from your body. And one cell from the man's body. So it's a 50-50 deal. And yet you won't allow us to have a say. You're going to dominate, and you're going to decide whether or not you're going to murder our children. And we don't have a choice. We have to stand idly by while you murder our children. Do you realize right now that the antagonism between men and women is so deep that most of you women will die alone? Most of us men will be dying alone. Do you realize that life is so unfair right now that 40% of females reproduce? No, it's the other way around. I'm sorry. 40% of males, that's all, reproduce, have children. Whereas 80% of females, and females are the majority of the population, not by a huge amount, but definitely there's more females than males. 80% of females reproduce. Is that very fair? No, that's life. That's the way it is. There's some competition there. And I guess that's natural. I don't know what to make of it, but I do know that walking into court with this no-fault divorce, in which a woman is allowed to cheat on her husband and sue for divorce because she's not happy, and walk away with child custody, when we know for a fact that the cause of criminality is fatherless parenting. So we're automatically giving the children to the mother, which results in more crime, more prisons, more problems, more victims, more of everything bad. And you all tell us men are bad. I'm sorry. You tell us you don't need us. I'm sorry. You tell us, give us your money. I'm sorry. You tell us that we have to put up with your stuff and you're going to rule the roost. And you do rule. It's really hard for me to say no. Really hard. I admit it. It's a personal flaw. And yet, the only way that a woman ever loves a man is if he's willing to say no and establish limits. You get the best results when you say no to a woman. And I think we men have to just say no, and not just say no, but turn our backs and walk away. It's called men going their own way. And it's being criticized as being a hate cult or hate group or hate speech. No, it's self-defense. You put us in jail at a much higher rate. It's genderism. It's actually systemic. It's required that you discriminate against men in this country. It's actually the law of the land now. So yes, we have systemic discrimination against white men in particular. And what's so bad about us? Well, there aren't enough black athletes to go around, so you women are going to be fighting over them. Fine. You're going to be very unfulfilled. fine. You're not willing to be satisfied with the blue collar worker? That's not too good. I'll be honest with you. I envy those guys that know the trades and can do stuff. I mean, my brother can fix stuff. He can do stuff that I don't even understand. I don't even know how to begin to approach those tasks, those problems. But he can do that. I admire him quite a bit for it. But the problem is he goes on with the narrative at large, which is destroying our nation because you accept everything without questioning the authorities. At this point, it's mostly dead men walking. That's what I see. I mean, if you want to see a nation that's been destroyed, go drive the suburbs or the inner cities at night. Look at who comes out onto the streets. Look at the people that are out there, how physically impaired they are. I mean, the walking, the inability to walk in a coordinated fashion, the weird stuff that people have going on in their bodies today, how out of shape, how diseased and distressed that we are and we've become. It's pretty bad. And all those people get a check from the government out of sympathy. And so it's encouraged to be disabled. It's encouraged that you not be able-bodied so that you can be supported rather than supporting yourself. We've got a really weird, twisted society. When our nation was founded, it was immoral to tax a man's wages, his labor by which he supported himself. That was unethical, immoral. They never would allow it. But yet today, we're being chased down and hounded. And not only that, but for most of us, the taxes aren't due, but the bills are due. You've got to pay an expert to do that, and you have to jump through hoops. And it's an insane system, this progressive communistic income tax. It needs to go away. It can go away, but at this point, I think the entire country is slated for extermination. The people that run the world met several years ago in Bilderberg, and they said that they were going to take the United States down, that it was our turn. And they cheered at Bilderberg and said, let's get the Americans what they've got coming. And somebody yelled out, let's wall them in and not let them out so they can do their mischief ever again. Have we really been honest with ourselves? I mean, seriously, have we actually been honest with ourselves? I don't think so. I look at it as a great gangster organization at this point. I'm looking at these law enforcement agencies, and I'm seeing police empowered so they can commit murder and get away with it. And I'm seeing people worshiping the thin blue line and thinking that they deserve to have this much power. And yet I'm seeing people losing their lives and nobody being held accountable. That's the way it is across the country. We have this qualified immunity, which should be disqualifying. And I think if you really want qualified immunity, then give us this. If you have qualified immunity, but you lie as a police officer, then let's put you to death. I mean, if our lives are depending upon you being honest, and we're giving you this wonderful immunity so you can't be prosecuted, you can't be sued or held responsible, then fine. Give us your word. Give us an oath that you're never going to lie in a police report, that you're never going to lie in testimony against somebody else, that you're not going to make things up. I got news for you. They can't stop themselves. I mean, some of these people, when they stop you, for for traffic stuff and all that, they're going to give you the ticket to make a quota, or they're just in a bad mood. Maybe their wife has treated them horribly and they're going to take it out on the world. Who the hell knows? That's one of the problems with a police officer. I don't bother to approach you guys very much anymore. Why? Kind of afraid of you. I mean, if I want directions, and I remember approaching a police officer because I wanted to get directions. He kept turning from side to side. He did not want to even look at me. He didn't want me approaching him. I looked at him and I thought, this guy doesn't want to talk to me. And at that point, I listened to my gut instinct. I obeyed it, and I turned sideways and walked. And of course, a lot of police officers would have demanded to know, hey, what are you doing? You were coming towards me, now you're turning away. What the hell are you up to? But I just turned. My spirit told me, avoid this man. He doesn't want anything to do with you. And who knows what kind of a call he just came off, how much adrenaline he might still be running on. I mean, who knows how rattled he might be from what he just had to witness. And you all want to be free. Well, I got news for you. You're all enslaved. It's a slave society. You are enslaved to this phony money, this horrible system that these politicians foisted off on you. The Rothschilds and their ilk finally got through their money system here. And so they've stolen everything. They've stolen all the property, all the land, all real titles. I think they've stolen those too. They even bond us, I guess, in several ways. We have what's called social insurance, which today we call Social Security, which is a big, giant Ponzi scheme. And in the background, they've actually got millions of dollars on file for each one of us that's held in trust for us. But they don't tell us about it. So you're worried because, oh my God, he's a Republican. Dr. Kent's going to take away my Social Security. No, I think that we ought to expose Social Security for the frickin' fraud it is, and you should have a choice. Do you want the millions of dollars that are on file under your name, in your name, held for your benefit, in secret from you? Or do you just want that measly little check that you might get at the end for $500, $600 a month, or if you're lucky, $1,300, $1,400 a month? Or maybe if you're super lucky and invested quite well and you don't get screwed around, $3,600 a month. I think that's the biggest check. But remember this, it's all phony money. The whole system is rigged from one end to the other. These police are able to craft up things any which way they want. Look at Paul Pelosi. He has a gentleman in his house late at night. They get naked together. For some reason, Paul Pelosi takes a hammer to his guest, and the guest takes the hammer away from Mr. Pelosi and gives it to him. What we do know is a crime was committed. Probably a few crimes, actually. We also know that we're never going to get the truth out of that situation because Paul Pelosi is married to the Speaker of the House. They'll do anything they can to cater to him. So even though he might be guilty of using the hammer first on his guest, he gets away with it. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand that concept of the man who lands the last blow quite often gets the assault charge. But this attempted murder charge? Don't you think maybe Paul Pelosi was trying to murder the guy? And they knew each other. They knew each other rather well. Pelosi's got a problem. And he's embarrassing his wife at this point. I would be pretty embarrassed if I was Paul Pelosi to be married to the Wicked Witch of the West. Wouldn't you? Look, folks, America used to be good. We used to abide by the laws, the rules, and regulations. I found out that when I abided by those things as required, I got attacked. I was destroyed professionally because I dared do the right thing. And as my buddy said, don't do the right thing in the wrong place. And they had to go after me to cover up the crimes. And it's very much a criminal organization. The way these places are run, the way they operate, you think that there's justice and there's an incredible criminal justice system, not realizing that these are evil systems that deal in men's souls, that they don't give a damn about justice. All they care about is the image, the looks, They want it to look like it's law enforcement. They want it to look like it's justice. They want it to look like it's protecting the public, whereby in this case, in most states, they're making money off their inmate populations. Talk about a motivator for unfairly convicting people and incarcerating people. Talk about a motivator for making things serious crimes that shouldn't be crimes, things in which nobody has been injured or harmed, which I think that alone we should be grateful for. But instead, no, we have to go after the other person. It's really a pretty sick, sadistic society at this point. There is no mercy. Women stopped being merciful a while back when they found out they could get all the prizes and goodies, and they're not going to give that up. The one thing that's kryptonite for a woman is responsibility. Women will not take responsibility. When I find a woman taking responsibility, it's incredible. It's rare. If you want a good idea of whether or not men are more caring or women are more caring, just go walk these streets. Just go and walk these streets and cross the road. And after a while, you will be able to observe who it is that watches out for your safety that's driving, who's behind the wheel. And you'll be able to tell who actually is loving and caring out there. And I'm going to tell you that unfortunately, it's not women. The women will run your ass over. They think you have to let them go first. They still think these old standards apply where you have to give up your seat to them. You have to open the door for them. You have to stop whatever you're doing and let them proceed first. And they don't care if you're a pedestrian out there and they're wrapped in a couple tons of sheet metal with a nice engine and some power to it. They don't give a damn about that. They don't care anymore. You need to realize that. Men are far more noble and caring and far more good than women today. And why is that? It's because we're held to higher standards. We've always been held to higher standards. Now, is that unfair? Well, look at the outcomes. You want to control the outcomes, right? Because you say you've got to change the outcomes in order to right the wrongs, in order to correct discrimination. You have to legislate the outcomes, not the playing field. Well, it's not working very well. It's very lopsided right now. It's going to get worse. We are very unbalanced, a very becoming more insane population. There's crazy stuff going on. Look at what these politicians and what these news agencies try to foist off on you. Look at what they try to get you to believe. I mean, they've got you thinking that police can never do anything wrong, that they don't do anything wrong, that they're not human beings, that they're gods, supermen. They got you believing in the Nazi concept. Isn't that kind of crazy? Because you want to give them power and you want to empower this incredible machinery they have going on. Look at Merrick Garland. Look at the investigations he's authorized. Look at how they're looking up the butts of fathers and mothers who are concerned about their children. Boy, they've got a lot of you classified as domestic terrorists because you don't like what the school board's doing. I think the fabric has been destroyed. I don't think you can put it back together again. There's no shoring this country up at this point. It has to be destroyed. It's going to be destroyed. These people that are in power today have got a corner on the thinking market. You're not allowed to discuss things. You're not allowed to have a conscience. You're not allowed to engage in scientific debate and discussion. It has to be censored. Yes. If you can't get good information, how are you going to make good decisions? You're not. And you think that there ought to be a law. Yeah. There ought to be a law against the other son of a bitch. There ought to be a law. Wow. And you don't even think about how that law can be used against you, how that's going to limit you and your freedom. We used to be a very free nation, a lot of elbow room, actually a lot more tolerance than there is today. I think America's become a bunch of Nazis. Look at it. The people on the left, the people running these machines, the people counting the votes, the people that are in the media in particular that report this bullshit and these lies, and the politicians lying all the time, and it's now legal for the government to lie to us all. Barack Insane Obama did that to us. And you people still think he's great. Don't get me wrong, I think he's mesmerizing, somewhat like Bill Clinton as well. But I don't want to be in the same room with them. I mean, you might want to be in the same room with Barack Obama, Bill Clinton. I sure as hell don't want to be in the same state with those people. I mean, I think somebody's going to whack those guys at some time, and I don't want to be anywhere nearby. I don't want to get blamed for it. I don't want to be accused of it. I got by today, and I didn't read Romans like I was going to, but I had to ask Google, where in the Bible does it say, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord? And my God, Google was great. It comes back, Romans, and it's in there. And of course, I don't get along with Paul very well. That's just a thing that I just don't like the way he writes. It turns out because the book was not written in Greek originally, it actually was written in Aramaic and translated into Greek. And yeah, and so you'll say it was a Greek Bible. It was produced in Greek. No, some of it was in Greek, not all of it. Most of it was Aramaic. How did they pull this stuff on us? How did they hide this from us? It's because we're lazy, we're lackadaisical, we don't read, we don't open our minds up, we don't study, we don't learn things, we don't work on trades or skills. We are just too lazy. We want it all handed to us. Tell me how to vote. Tell me what to think. And then we've got family members turned against family members. And it's all on stupid stuff. So I would have to say at this point that we've been destroyed. The family has been attacked. The families are not very intact. There's more single mothers running around than there are probably married women today with children. It's become the norm. There's no going back on that. Women are told they're being big, bold, and strong. And I'm watching these single parents try to take care of their children. And I'm looking at them and how exasperated they are because they're doing it all alone. And they really need help. It takes a couple of adults to gang up on a child to be able to do things correctly with the children. And so you women are out there raising monsters and getting upset. You brought it on yourself. You decided that children needed their mothers, which is not a truism at all. You know, you decided children needed their mothers more than their fathers. And we have the studies on boys, and we know damn well that 70% of all boys reared by single mothers go to prison, whereas only 6% of boys reared by fathers alone go to prison. So how's that working for you? You're making things worse. You want to dominate. You want to rule the roost. You want to make the man do what you want. You want to command. And yet at the same time, you want to be secure. How can you be secure when you're busy belittling the man? How can you be secure when you're busy lying about the guy? when you're busy fabricating things and making things up, and he touched me or he hit me, while you're hitting him. You weren't held to the same standards, and as a result, you aren't as good as we are. You ladies aren't as good as the men are. You do not love and care like a man can. You are not merciful anymore. The idea that, you are loving and nurturing, that's all gone. You threw it out the window. You threw it all away. You've torn down your own houses. You think, I'll just go out on the open market. I can do better. Where did that thought come from? Where did you get the idea that you could do better? The insane thing is that you think because you're so beautiful when you're young and you have so much going for when you're young, you think that you're always going to be beautiful and always going to be young. And the crazy thing is nature's not very fair. You are given everything right out of the chute to do it all. As a matter of fact, I think if you're a woman and you don't get pregnant and you don't go to college and get a student debt and you're virtuous, actually. Let's say you've been with less than a handful of men. I think you got some value. And you think, oh no, I can be with 500 men and you're going to value me the same, by God. You have to do it that way. Well, I got news for you. We men don't have to do it that way. And the sad thing is, even women don't do it that way. Nobody values you if you've been with 500 people. They consider you unreliable, dangerous, a heartbreaker. You're going to cause trouble. If you want the best you can have, women, you need to stay virtuous. Yes, and reserve yourself. Yes. And you need to stay out of debt. You don't need a college education. You don't need some useless degree that's not going to give you anything. One of these skilled things would be a nice thing to have, something that would allow you to get a good wage for when you want to work, something that allows you the flexibility to work when you want, and not that you have to go to work and do a full 40-hour week. We don't want that for you. We really don't. We want better for you. But the fact is that you're not willing to support yourselves and you're not willing to contribute to the family. That the man's money is your money and your money is your money. And you think it's cute to be that way. Well, the fact is that it's all wearing thin at this point. We men go our own way to defend ourselves, out of defense, out of self-defense. We just want to be left alone. We don't want somebody in our face arguing. We don't want somebody that rides our asses all the time. We don't want somebody that belittles us, that abuses us psychologically, and sometimes even starts striking us. We don't want that. And so what we have found is that when we work on ourselves, when we go off and read books by ourselves, when we exercise, or go do some other solitary thing by ourselves, take up a hobby, go hiking, go hunting, fishing, we find we're a lot happier. Life is a lot easier. So we avoid you. And you women out there who want a man to support you, think that you're going to get one. You think you're going to party and play until you're 30, and then some guy's going to take your ass on and support you. You're so stupid and entitled. You really think that way. And the thing is that, no, you're going to be left alone. You're not going to find anybody rescuing you. Nobody's going to pick your ass up and carry you. And the crazy thing is that a lot of you are in your 28, 29, 30, 31. You're starting to wake up, but it's too late. Your peak market value was age 22. And if you were lucky and smart, you chose a good man and you committed to the relationship and you got married before your 23rd year. And you married up Yeah, you married somebody who made more money than you did. You married somebody who was older than you were and more established because that's what it takes. Men aren't given everything right out of the chute. We're still growing. We aren't even mature at 18. We're not even mature at 21. I think that a man doesn't really become very mature until age 25, to be honest with you. And some of those state laws that were on the books a while back were pretty quaint and pretty protective, like in Kansas, where you couldn't get married without your parents' permission if you were under 21 as a man. But if you were 18, you could get married without your parents' permission in Kansas. I think the people in Kansas were smart. They understood that a man will do stupid, foolish things, will get talked into things he shouldn't get talked into by women. And you all think you're the fairer sex. You think you're kinder, and you're not. You are not kinder. I'm sorry, that's just the way women's nature really truly is. We've all fooled each other long enough. You want to talk about bloodthirsty? A woman is far more bloodthirsty than a man. When women go into the military in Israel, because they drafted both genders, they had a problem. They found out that the women were too damn bloodthirsty and they couldn't control them enough. They weren't disciplined enough. They were vicious. I've carried on here a bit. The big problem is the censorship is destroying America. That we can no longer talk to one another. We cannot get information. We cannot exchange that freely and readily. And as a result, we cease to exercise our minds as much. We cease to be ourselves. We cease to have a constantly emerging conscience. We seek to be, we stop growing. And so we're all stilted by this stupid, the news media, and the same people who own the news media own big tech and claim they can do whatever they want and be dictatorial because they're private companies. We have some real problems. And I think at this point that they want us to fight among ourselves. They want the physical fighting. And because we haven't been able to do that and give them what they want, they're going to stop the energy during this winter. And there's going to be shortages, and we're going to be scrambling to survive and fighting over toilet paper and paper towels and food and everything else. It's going to be pretty bad. But you voted for this. Yes, you did. Over the years, you voted for these crazy assholes that are in office. And by the way, I'm not talking just about Democrats. Because when the Republicans get the House and get the Senate, they're going to sit on their asses like they did before, because it's a one-party system. They just put on the show and pretend to be two parties. It's a one-party system. You're not going to get what you want. You're not going to get the changes you want. The only way you're going to get the freedom that you want back is by cutting down the central government. You've got to take away the central police powers of the central government. It needs to be restored to the states. You have to restore the safekeeping that we had when we were early on, when we were states. You didn't have professional police. You didn't need them. You had the militia. And when men saw that things were going haywire, men stepped in and put a stop to it. We're not allowed to do that anymore. It's considered taking the law into our own hands. And then we have judges who decide to protect the evildoers from the retaliations that they had coming, the punishment they had coming. My God, when this society comes apart, it's going to be kind of grand in a certain sense, because you're going to be able to kill the other son of a bitch for a change. The people that are really doing wrong to you on the spot, you'll be able to take their lives and walk off. I think. Until somebody decides you're the problem and decides they're going to take your life. Yeah, I think going to the hills is a good idea. I think being separated from all you crazy son of a bitches out there, I think that's a good idea. I think getting out of the suburbs is going to be necessary. And the cities, they're going to be hell on earth. They're already pretty hellish. like I said, if you want to see a whole different society and culture, stay, take a nap during the day, go to sleep, and then go take a ride out and go to the streets late at night. You'll find out that a different crowd of people comes out about 10 o'clock. I don't think they wake up until 10 p.m., probably. And you'll find that there's a whole different group at 1 o'clock. And you're going to see that there might be a fewer people, but they're a little bit weirder. There's some real strange stuff. You're going to see things that you just won't be able to believe. Hell, I was out late one night, and for me it was late, and I pull into In-N-Out Burger to get something to eat, and my headlights swing across this guy sitting in a frickin' wheelchair in the middle of the parking lot with an IV bag dripping into him. He was on the street in a wheelchair. Now, I looked at it and I'm thinking, this is kind of creepy. Is this a setup? Is this a decoy? Am I going to get ambushed here? Is that what's going on? I mean, is this guy really on the street in a wheelchair with an IV in him? It was too weird. I didn't stop to ask questions. I wasn't going to hang out there. It wasn't really a very safe place. So things are deteriorating more in the inner cities. It's gotten much worse, and it's going to get worse yet. And there are places in which the police don't go. Those are going to be getting more frequent and much larger. And it's kind of hard to blame people when you see that police can murder people and get away with it. And judges do their best to bend over backwards so the cops get off. I hate to say that like that. I mean, so generic and so generalized like that. That sounds so frickin' racist, you know. If I said so the blacks get off, that'd be obviously racist, but the cops get off. I mean, let's face it, it's kind of the same thing. So the problem is that we don't trust each other anymore. We can't trust each other anymore. You can't depend upon the police to do a damn thing. You can't depend upon the prosecutors to protect you from the criminals anymore. You've got some weird people that are in these offices. Oh, don't get me wrong. There's some crazy characters in office. But what's going on today is much more a dereliction of duty and the stupidity. The sheer stupidity of some of these people, their inabilities to express themselves, their lack of mastery of the simple mastery of the English language. I mean, some of them talk in such simplistic ways that I can tell the IQ is not very high. There's just not much there. And not only that, there's no capacity. So there's no enriching that you can do to change this condition. They're stuck the way they are. They've been so successful in dumbing down the public that the IQ is so stupid, so low right now that you'll believe and do anything. You know, you believe in the stupid ass global warming that they claim. At least I don't think I'm going to get censored for saying that, but it is stupid. All right, I've gone long here. I think the real big question is America any good? And that's what I'm going to entitle this. You know, I think that America was good and was great, but I don't think that's the case anymore. I really don't. I think we've corrupted ourselves. We let ourselves get off track, that our consciences are tainted. We don't think right anymore. We don't make good decisions anymore. Look at the leaders. Look at who you put in the White House. Look at who's the vice president is. What a dumbass. Elected by a bunch of dumbasses. Or should I say, put in office by a bunch of dumbasses who think everybody else is going to buy their bullshit. And of course, they keep forcing it. They are Bolsheviks, in case you're wondering. That's what I like to call them. They originated from Manhattan. They originated from our shores and went abroad to Russia and did that to the Tsar and his family and to the Soviet Union and murdered all of those people over there. So in a certain sense, the chickens have come home to roost. They have come home to roost. In a certain sense, that pastor of Barack Hussein Obama's, who cussed America, was quite right, and he was telling the truth. And the fact is that because we no longer abide by the Ten Commandments, we've got it coming. Because we've turned our back on Creator, Father, Yahweh, God, because we've turned our back on natural law, this is what's coming. This is the judgment. I mean, we are going to experience some really bad stuff here. And when those ICBMs go to flying, remember, you voted for it. You voted for things to turn this way. You've allowed things to go this way. You know, you won't allow justice in the courts, or the courts are too busy doing their peccadillos on Epstein's Island and going to China and getting paid off every year to give us proper justice. I don't know who they represent. You know, and look at the congressmen. We have the finest congressman money can buy, and they're all bought off by the Chi-Coms now. Look at what is going on. I think that we need a 2-decade moratorium on all immigration while we sort out what's here. And we need to get rid of a lot of these people that have entered, or their parents entered illegally. We need to end all dual citizenship, especially in elected office. You cannot have dual citizenship and be employed by the government, I don't think. We need to cut this government down to size. We don't need this many prisons and penitentiaries. We do need the death penalty administered, and it can't be 4 decades delayed like it is in places. I mean, what a farce. You've turned it into a money-making machine for the corporation, for your corporate state governments, and it's absolutely immoral. It's not just. It's not proper. So we don't rule ourselves anymore. We have a foreign jurisdiction that's been brought here and superimposed upon us. Well, you are not a free man. You're not under the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't count at all. You're under Uniform Commercial Code, which began 70 years ago in 1952. You can forget about having any rights because you won't take responsibility. You want to hide behind limited liability corporations and other corporations, which means basically you want to be irresponsible and you want to steal from other people. You want to do harm to other people, take advantage. You want to rape, pillage, burn, murder, and steal all that stuff, and you don't want to be held accountable. You've got politicians that violate their oaths of office and should be dealt with, dispatched. Thanks for hanging out with me. Go buy the Bible. Do some reading. I've been negligent lately. I wanted to get into the book of Romans. We have to push our way through these things and get these things into our minds, into our hearts, into our souls, so that we program ourselves up to be good once again. The only way America is going to be great again, is if she becomes good again. And right now, she's no good. She wants to dictate and she wants to control. She meddles in the affairs of other nations. She undermines other governments. She undermined the proper government in the Ukraine in 2014. By undermining that government and doing that, we're responsible for that shit that's happening in the Ukraine. I don't like Putin, but he's the only adult in the room right now. And this leadership from the rest of the so-called free world is so pitiful. It's so horrible that Putin is going to have his way. And I don't mind if he takes the whole Ukraine. I'd rather that than there be World War III. What do you want? I mean, it was called the Ukraine because it's like saying the border town, the border country. It wasn't an independent place. And you need to start looking at the symbols for the Ukraine. Why? Because the symbol for the Ukraine The symbol that they're using on the flag and the symbols that they're using in their military patches is the same symbol that ancient Khazaria went to war under. Okay? You got that. It's the same thing as Khazaria, the symbolism. Why is that? Let's take it a step further. If you look at the symbolism for the god Molech, also called Baal, the one that they worship by sacrificing their children to, by passing their children through the fire. Actually, they put their children into the fire and burn them completely. Same symbol. Slight variation in the lines at the bottom of the symbol. Otherwise, the symbols are virtually identical. So you need to look at these things. They mean something. You know, this is the fight between good and evil. You've got people dealing in children in this country. And it's such an organized criminal thing that you have the foreigners, our guests, being brought in, and they're delivered to certain people. And from there, MS-13 representatives pick them up and they fly them around the country. So when we talk about human trafficking, the United States government is big into it. They're backing these people. They're funding it. They're seeing that these people get sent around the planet. Human slavery. Some of them indentured into sex slave status. Some of them probably just, who knows what they're used for, how they're abused, and what's going on. Look, if we close that border and we send our troops down to clean up the cartels, that would be the greatest thing, the nicest thing we could do for the Mexican people, is to get rid of those cartels for them. I think that's a war that we ought to be fighting. I would love to just take Mexico and make it our Ukraine. Make it the border country. We don't need a damn wall. We'll use the whole country as a damn buffer zone. But we have no standards here. It's not illegal, or the law's not enforced. Them being in the country illegally is okay. Man, when the shit hits the fan this time, it's going to be ugly. It's not going to be pretty. The last time they had a bunch of riots and burnings, by the way, the burn patterns, when analyzed, the burn patterns were specific to the high-speed rail train that the politicians want to build in California to bilk us out of more money. So they burned the territory there that was standing in the way so they could build that high-speed boondoggle out there in California that went to nowhere. That's coming, by the way. And then the burn patterns around these big cities, they all happen to be around the banks, in a pattern that allows the Federal Reserve banks the land that they need at fire sale prices in order to expand their operations, so that we each have an account with the Federal Reserve Bank rather than having credit unions and offshoots of banks. Folks, we need to go back to coin gold, coin silver for money, and we need to get rid of this federal deposit insurance stuff. We need to let the banks become private institutions once again. And when they fail, we need to step aside and let them fail. Sure, it's not a good thing. It's not wonderful. It's not ideal. But it would be better for a bank to fail and those people to suffer than it is for the entire world to suffer, because you've got a bunch of liars and thieves at the helm doing all kinds of shady deals and deciding, well, we need to make some money. Let's use our war machine. Too many useless eaters out there. Let's reduce the population and let's pit this country against that country. Can you imagine? They plan these wars decades in advance. So the Ukraine war was planned a long time before Barack Obama was in office. They just used him to get this thing really set up well and make it happen. And they decide which countries are going to flourish and which ones are going to go by the wayside. So you've been slated for destruction, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not. That's what's happened, is you've been slated for destruction. And there's nothing that's going to stop the destruction except you become good. You become good. And how do you become good? Yahweh bless America.